10 sacred stones so powerful, even demons fear them. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This ancient verse reminds us that true power often lies in what the world overlooks. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we explore 10 ancient stones so sacred, so energetically pure, that no demon dares to touch them. Each one holding frequencies of protection, memory, and deep spiritual alignment. Carl Jung once said that symbols carry the weight of the unconscious, and these stones are more than matter. They are keys to the soul. As you listen, reflect on how these forgotten relics mirror your own inner resilience. Which stone speaks to you most? Comment below and share your thoughts. And if this journey stirs something within you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and pass this message on. Let's awaken the ancient wisdom within us all. 1. Smoky quartz, the mirror of shadows. Smoky quartz is not a crystal that flatters the eye, it confronts the soul. Found in the shadowed highlands of Scotland, particularly in the mystical Cairngorm Mountains, this stone was never meant to shine with outward brilliance. Its power has always been inward, silent, and deep. Highland warriors wore it into battle not for decoration, but for spiritual armor. Druids and ancient shamans revered it as a mirror, not one that shows your face, but one that reveals what hides beneath it. What you see in smoky quartz is not your reflection, but your fear. And that is its sacred gift. Unlike other stones that claim to trap or bind darkness, smoky quartz does not engage in spiritual theatrics. It simply reflects the energy around it with brutal honesty, causing demons to see their own distortion and retreat. Its presence is enough to disturb what is false and amplify what is true. And when you hold it, your soul begins to remember that fear is not your enemy, it is your initiation. This stone absorbs emotional trauma like a silent witness that never judges. In times of grief, it becomes a companion that does not ask you to be strong, but simply to be. It takes the sharp edges of sorrow and softens them through grounding. When life feels unstable, smoky quartz roots you back into the earth, back into your own body, back into the ancient knowing of your soul. It carries the frequency of shadow work, of soul remembrance, and of grounded transformation. Grief, rage, confusion, none of these emotions disturb it. In fact, it welcomes them, because it knows that healing doesn't come from pretending the wound isn't there. Healing comes when the soul has the courage to see it. This is where Jung's wisdom echoes through time. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Smoky quartz does not show you who you want to be. It shows you who you are in your wholeness, in your hurt, and in your hidden strength. What makes smoky quartz feared by darkness is not its shine, it's its silence. It doesn't attack, it reveals. And in a world where most people run from their shadows, this stone stands firm and waits. It holds space for you to descend into the unspoken pain, the repressed memories, the forgotten grief you've been carrying for years. And then, quietly, it begins to shift the weight. It doesn't remove the burden, but it reminds you that you were never weak for carrying it. For the man who has lived through loss, for the one who's been taught to suppress his tears, for the soul that feels too much and speaks too little, this stone becomes an anchor, a sacred ally. It will not rescue you, but it will never abandon you. And that alone makes it powerful. in ritual, in meditation, or simply in your pocket as you move through the world, smoky quartz becomes more than an object. It becomes a presence. It vibrates with the memory of warriors, of mystics, of men who chose the path of soul mastery over surface success. It doesn't make promises. It asks you to look, to feel, to remember, to reclaim. That is its only demand. And if you answer it not with perfection, but with presence, you may find that what once haunted you no longer holds power. Because the soul that has faced its own shadows becomes untouchable. And in that quiet clarity, no demon dares to linger. Have you ever faced your own shadow through a spiritual tool? If so, share your experience with smoky quartz or shadow work in the comments so others can learn and grow. If not, comment below. I'm ready to look within. And let's begin this journey of fear mastery and deep grounding together. 2. Rainbow obsidian, the blade that seals. Rainbow obsidian is more than just volcanic glass. It is a sacred weapon forged in the depths of fire, laced with iridescent waves of color that flicker like truth trying to surface. Found in regions like Mexico, Japan, and Oregon, this ancient stone once shaped ceremonial daggers, not for war, but for spiritual confrontation. It cuts through illusion the way lightning slices the sky, clean, fast, undeniable. It doesn't ask for permission to reveal what's hidden. It simply does. Emotional wounds, repressed fears, long-buried pain, this stone brings them to the surface not to torment you, but to liberate you. It is known to amplify what resides in the shadow, making it impossible to hide behind smiles or distractions. And this is precisely why no demon dares to touch it, because rainbow obsidian tells the truth. In a world obsessed with projection and performance, the presence of this stone feels like a silent but unyielding force that strips everything down to its core. It's not here to make you feel better. It's here to make you see clearly. As Carl Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Rainbow obsidian is the blade that performs this unveiling. It is an archetype of the inner sword, the one that slices through denial and confronts you with what you've always known but never wanted to face. I once knew a man, a successful executive admired by many, who carried a piece of rainbow obsidian in his pocket. Outwardly, he was composed, accomplished, but within, he was haunted by inexplicable rage. A spiritual guide once told him, "This stone will show you where the bleeding began." He scoffed at first, but over time, in stillness and silence, the stone became more than just a talisman. It became a mirror. His meditations became intense, raw, filled with buried memories and forgotten tears. Childhood wounds he thought he had outgrown re-emerged with clarity, and what followed was not collapse, but transformation. He didn't become someone else. He returned to himself. That's the real alchemy of rainbow obsidian. It doesn't change you, it reveals you. It forces you to stand naked in front of your own soul, to see the scars you tried to pretend weren't there, and to recognize that they were never shameful. They were maps. This stone doesn't reflect beauty. It reflects truth. And in that truth is a rare kind of beauty, the kind that can't be sold, filtered, or performed. The kind that emerges only when you faced yourself and didn't run. So when you hold rainbow obsidian, know this: you are holding an invitation, not to escape, but to go deeper, to stop outsourcing your healing and start reclaiming the parts of your soul you abandoned. In doing so, you carry out the very essence of Carl Jung's work, the integration of shadow, the return to wholeness. You are not broken. You are buried, and this blade was made to set you free. 3. Labradorite, the veil between realms. Labradorite appears unremarkable at first, its surface dull and gray. But the moment it catches the light, it ignites with the colors of the cosmos: deep blue, shimmering green, and golden fire. This inner glow is no accident. It's a spiritual phenomenon. The ancient Inuits believed labradorite originated from the frozen fire of the northern lights, and they used it to communicate with the mystical energies of the aurora. It has long been regarded not as a shield against darkness, but as a transformer of it. Rather than repelling negative energy, labradorite changes its frequency, altering the energetic field so profoundly that demonic forces, spiritual parasites, and low vibrational entities cannot maintain their clarity in its presence. They become disoriented, stripped of focus, unable to anchor themselves. This stone doesn't destroy darkness, it alchemizes it. It's not about escape. It's about mastery of energy, the kind of spiritual evolution where fear dissolves, not because you fought it, but because you changed the entire frequency of the battlefield. Carl Jung's wisdom echoes here. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Labradorite is a companion in that journey. It helps you walk through shadow with open eyes. Its frequency opens portals between waking life and the dream state, inviting mystics, intuitives, and spiritual seekers to explore the hidden dimensions where truth speaks in symbols and the soul remembers what the mind has forgotten. Holding this stone is like tuning a cosmic dial. Your awareness shifts, and you begin to perceive what was once invisible. It does more than protect, it initiates. In the presence of labradorite, ordinary perception gives way to deeper knowledge. It's as if time folds, and you're able to access wisdom stored in the unseen. The veil between the worlds thins, and you realize that you are not lost. You are being guided. In that space, darkness loses its grip because you're no longer playing by its rules. You're not operating on fear. You're not reacting. You're remembering. To carry labradorite is to carry a reminder that you are a spiritual being living in a multi-dimensional world. You don't need to shield yourself behind walls. You need to shift into resonance with your higher self and let that vibration speak for you. When your energy is aligned, nothing impure can touch you. It simply doesn't recognize the frequency. Labradorite is for those who are done with the illusion of protection and are ready to embody transformation. The soul does not need rescue, it needs remembrance. And when you hold this ancient stone, that remembering begins. Did this stone spark something deep within you? If so, comment mystical below. Let's keep exploring the veil between worlds together. 4. Jet, the silent sentinel. Jet, the silent sentinel, is not a stone that dazzles the eyes. It speaks to the soul in whispers only the spiritually attuned can hear. Formed from fossilized ancient wood, buried beneath the earth for millions of years, jet has been revered by the ancient Romans, the Navajo, and medieval Europeans, not for its beauty, but for its raw, unshakable power. Matte black and feather light, it doesn't shine or shimmer, it absorbs. It pulls in fear, darkness, and chaotic energy like a spiritual vacuum, leaving no residue behind. While other stones push energy outward or emit light to repel the negative, Jet offers something far more rare: absolute stillness. It does not feed demons. It does not react to manipulation. Its power lies in what it withholds: its refusal to engage in the energetic games that malevolent forces thrive on. And that is precisely what makes it untouchable. This is not a stone for the performative seeker. Jet doesn't serve those chasing status or surface-level healing. It's for the man who has been through things he doesn't speak about. The one who carries the weight of others but rarely shows his own cracks. Jet is for the spiritual warrior who doesn't want a spotlight but needs a shield. It grounds the soul without numbing it. It keeps you whole when your world threatens to fragment. In a time when energy is constantly demanded, stolen, and distorted, Jet gives you nothingness as power. No flair, no fanfare, just a deep, unwavering presence that says, "You are safe here." It teaches by silence. It protects without making a scene. Jet is the reminder that not all protection comes from pushing back. Sometimes it comes from not giving anything away. Not your light, not your fear, not your soul's frequency. This is why healers and sensitives throughout time have clung to it. Because when the world grows loud and the spiritual battlefield becomes overwhelming, Jet doesn't rise to meet the chaos. It dissolves it, and it does so without draining you. That's the kind of power men seek when they've grown tired of posturing and are ready to rest in their true strength. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Jet supports that journey not by reshaping you, but by holding space for you to remember the soul beneath all the noise. And in that stillness, where demons find no entry point, you find something far greater than armor. You find the quiet, grounded essence of a man who has nothing to prove and everything to preserve. A man whose power is not in how loud he roars, but in how deeply he listens to others, to silence, and most of all, to his own soul. 5. Bloodstone, the wound that watches. Bloodstone is not merely a crystal. It is a sacred relic forged in the soul's battlefield. Its dark green body, marked by deep red flecks, is not meant to dazzle the eye, but to stir the spirit. Sourced from ancient lands like India, Brazil, and Oregon, bloodstone was carried by warriors not for charm, but for truth. In the heat of combat, as wounds opened and blood flowed, it bore silent witness. To them, it was more than a stone. It was a covenant, an observer of sacrifice, a mirror of intent. Linked to the blood of Christ and the legacy of martyrs, it channels the frequency of spiritual warfare, not by aggression, but by clarity. Bloodstone has never cared about appearances. It bypasses masks and dives straight into motive. That's what makes it untouchable to demons, not its shape, not its shimmer, but its merciless honesty. In a world addicted to illusion, where identity is often sculpted by social performance, bloodstone doesn't ask who you appear to be. It shows what you truly intend. And that's a level of spiritual exposure that darkness cannot bear. You may not carry a sword, but make no mistake, you're in battles every day. Picture a man rising early, worn by debt, disappointment, and pressure he cannot voice. His home is quiet, but inside him there's chaos. He drives to work, sits in meetings, pays bills, but deep inside, he wonders if anything he's doing truly matters. Then one day, life delivers a jolt, a layoff, a divorce, a health scare, and suddenly, everything external that wants to find him begins to fall away. That's when the soul steps forward. And in that sacred crisis, Bloodstone speaks. Not in words, but in presence. It grounds him, centers him, and forces him to ask, what am I truly fighting for? Not approval, not money, but alignment. And in that moment, the war becomes sacred. As Carl Jung said, he who looks outside dreams, but he who looks inside awakens. Bloodstone is that awakening of a silent force that invites you to confront the unconscious forces driving your decisions. It reveals the spiritual weight behind your actions. Are you building from truth or performance? Are you leading from clarity or confusion? Bloodstone doesn't give answers. It demands integrity. When your soul and your actions are not aligned, life will feel like resistance, exhaustion, fragmentation. You'll feel like you're running, but going nowhere. That's the soul's warning bell. And Bloodstone, like an ancient judge, places you before the mirror and says, show me who you are when no one is watching. That is why demons do not touch it. They cannot manipulate what is already seen. So if you find yourself at a crossroads, spiritually lost, emotionally wounded, energetically tired, remember this. You do not need to appear perfect. You need to be honest. Because honesty is your shield, and intention is your sword. When you walk into the world clear in motive, grounded in truth, and willing to be seen as you are, nothing can possess your path. That is the soul's true defense. That is the wisdom Carl Jung pointed toward. And that is why Bloodstone doesn't need to shout. It already knows your spirit's weight. If this stone moved something deep in you, don't forget to subscribe for more insights into sacred tools like Bloodstone, where wounds aren't hidden, but honored, and intentions speak louder than appearance. 6. Black tourmaline, the barrier of the banished. Black tourmaline, known across spiritual traditions as the final barrier between the soul and darkness, is not just a mineral, it's a force. Formed deep within the earth in places like Brazil, Afghanistan, and the United States, its long black crystalline blades seem to devour every trace of light, embodying the silent mystery of spiritual defense. Across cultures, Tibetan, Hindu, and Wiccan alike, this stone has been revered as a shield, not because of superstition, but because of the energetic truth felt by those who've used it. Black tourmaline does not merely sit and exist. It acts. It absorbs chaotic frequencies, psychic toxins, and energetic parasites that linger in our emotional and spiritual fields. To keep it under your pillow isn't just tradition. It's a practice rooted in generations of wisdom, offering protection during sleep, when your conscious mind rests and your soul becomes more vulnerable to intrusion. It is said that demons cannot penetrate the field of one who vibrates with truth. And black tourmaline helps you do just that, not by adding something new to you, but by stripping away interference so that your soul's natural harmony can resonate clearly. When Carl Jung said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos," he pointed to a secret that this stone seems to understand. That spiritual protection is not about fear or escape, but alignment. This stone doesn't fight darkness. It makes you invisible to it. It doesn't shout. It silences what tries to shout at you. The reason no demon dares to touch it isn't because it threatens them directly, but because it represents a state of spiritual clarity where their influence has no home. Those who walk a spiritual path know this. Your energy speaks before you do. And tourmaline is one of the few stones that helps purify that energy without noise or demand. In the modern world, where energy is often drained by constant distraction, toxic environments, or people who feed on your light, black tourmaline becomes not just a tool, but a necessity. It's the spiritual version of locking your door at night, not out of paranoia, but out of self-respect. There is a reason the ancients carried it in battle. And today, you are still in battle not with swords, but with unseen forces that whisper doubt, fear, and fragmentation. Holding black tourmaline is a declaration that your soul is sovereign. Its density grounds you, while its energy shields you, reminding you that real power is quiet, clean, and unwavering. This isn't about believing in magic. It's about honoring the energetic laws that govern your spiritual life. Black tourmaline teaches you that protection isn't a reaction, it's a frequency. And when you align with that frequency, no demon, no doubt, and no darkness can touch you. 7. Selenite, the blade of light. Selenite, the blade of light, is not just a crystal, it is the soul's silent sword against all that is false. Born of moonlight and found in sacred grounds like Mexico, Morocco, and Spain, it doesn't shield like other stones, nor ignite with fiery aggression. Instead, it dissolves darkness by making it irrelevant, bathing the room in a frequency so pure that negativity has nothing to cling to. This is why demons despise it, because it reveals their powerlessness. It cleanses not by force, but by presence. When you bring selenite into your space, you're not just holding a stone, you're holding a memory of who you were before fear, guilt, and distortion crept in. It purifies other stones effortlessly, which is why it was used in ancient temples and tombs, where the air was thick with prayer and the dead were honored with spiritual armor. There is something deeply masculine about this kind of power, the kind that doesn't dominate but dismantles illusion by simply being. Selenite doesn't attack energetic parasites or psychic fog. It makes them dissolve because they cannot coexist with truth. It's like walking into a room of lies with absolute honesty. Everything false collapses. This is not brute strength. This is refined clarity. Even though selenite is physically delicate, prone to chipping or crumbling under pressure, it embodies the paradox of the awakened man. The soul is indestructible, not because it fights, but because it remembers. And in that remembrance, every shadow loses its grip. The real spiritual warrior does not need to raise his voice. His alignment speaks louder than any battle cry. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And selenite reminds you that you were never meant to be buried under confusion, addiction, trauma, or spiritual noise. Its glow is not just visual, it's vibrational. With it, you feel layers peeling off, energy that doesn't belong to you, beliefs you didn't choose, wounds you were never meant to carry. It cuts without bleeding. It pierces without pain. It's the soul's scalpel, precise and holy. And in a world that trains men to armor up, toughen up, and shut up, selenite invites you to do something far more radical, to lighten up, not in humor, but in essence. To strip back what was never yours and return to what was always true. It doesn't make you untouchable by hiding you. It makes you untouchable by illuminating you. In its presence, your energetic field becomes uninhabitable to anything that feeds on chaos. That is why no demon dares to touch it, not because it burns, but because it exposes. In the light of selenite, nothing false survives. Only the soul remains. Are you ready to cut through the fog and step into clarity? If so, comment below. I claim the light to show your commitment to cleansing your spirit with the power of selenite. 8. Amethyst, the crown of clarity. Amethyst, the violet quartz revered for over 5,000 years, is not merely a gemstone, it is a spiritual force, a crown of clarity that has adorned the heads of priests, monks, and mystics from Uruguay to Russia to Brazil. Unlike stones that are said to shield or block dark energies through force, amethyst does something far more profound. It elevates you beyond their reach. This is not about confrontation, it's about ascension. Carl Jung once observed that symbols are the natural language of the soul, and amethyst is precisely that, a symbol of higher truth, clarity, and inner alignment. It doesn't fight with shadows. It makes you luminous enough that shadows no longer apply. It aligns your third eye, clears mental fog, and gently seals your aura so that chaos cannot penetrate your calm. In spiritual psychology, this isn't just protective, it's transformative. Instead of asking, "How do I fight?" the wearer of amethyst begins to ask, "How do I rise?" In a world where everything is vying for your attention, where algorithms are designed to hijack your nervous system and fear is broadcast like a signal, amethyst becomes a spiritual anchor in the noise. I recently spoke to a burned-out ICU nurse who had been absorbing the pain of others for years without knowing how to release it. She told me that after receiving an amethyst pendant as a gift, she began to wear it during her shifts. At first, it was just a token, a small comfort. But slowly, something shifted. The energy of the ER didn't stick to her the way it used to. She described it not as magic, but as memory, as if every time she touched the stone, her soul whispered back to her, "You're safe. Come back." This is the deeper nature of spiritual tools. They remind you of what you've forgotten in the noise. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires the integration of unconscious symbols. Amethyst, in this sense, is not just protection from dark forces. It is a mirror of your higher self, asking you to rise, not react. So many people today are focused on how to banish, block, or cleanse negative energy. But what if the most powerful thing you could do was simply ascend in frequency to where the negativity cannot touch you? That's what amethyst does. It tunes your energy like a sacred instrument. When your soul resonates at its true frequency, the noise fades. The demons can't find you because they exist at a different bandwidth. This is not just metaphysics. This is spiritual psychology in action. When you wear amethyst, you are not wearing a defense. You are wearing remembrance. You are embodying the truth that clarity is your birthright, that peace is not passive, but powerful. And in that space of centered vision, you begin to see through illusion, bypass manipulation, and reclaim your spiritual sovereignty. The lesson here is simple but deeply profound. You do not need to fight darkness when you are made of light. You do not need to fear confusion when you are crowned with clarity. The real strength of the soul is not in its ability to attack, but in its refusal to descend. So let the world swirl below. Let fear scream for attention. You, with amethyst on your heart or in your palm, are already above it. 9. Moldavite, the starfall catalyst. Moldavite, known as the starfall catalyst, is not just a stone, it's a spiritual ignition born of fire and cosmic force. created when a meteor struck the Earth over 15 million years ago in the region now called the Czech Republic. What emerged was not ordinary rock, but a luminous green tektite glass forged in celestial collision, carrying within it a frequency so intense that it has been feared by demons and revered by seekers of truth. Moldavite doesn't simply sit still on your body. It pulses, vibrates, activates, and shatters illusions. It's not gentle. It doesn't whisper affirmations or comfort you with soft energy. It charges in like lightning, breaking apart what no longer serves you, dragging your buried emotions into the light, and forcing you to meet your soul face to face. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," and Moldavite embodies this law. It awakens you by burning away the false layers of relationships that suffocate your growth, careers that mute your voice, habits that numb your essence. And though it can feel like your life is falling apart, what's really happening is that your spiritual alignment is falling into place. Demons fear Moldavite not because it repels them like armor, but because it raises your frequency so high they simply cannot touch you. It doesn't block negativity, it dissolves your resonance with it. You become invisible to what once had power over you. Moldavite doesn't shield, it transforms. It's not a stone of protection, it's a stone of obliteration and resurrection. It doesn't ask permission to work, it acts. Those who carry Moldavite often report sudden upheavals, profound dreams, emotional breakthroughs, and life-altering realizations. But these aren't side effects. They are the essence of the stone's purpose. In spiritual terms, Moldavite is a soul's wake-up call. It's the alarm bell that rings when you've been sleepwalking through life, playing roles you didn't choose, chasing goals that aren't yours. It rips off the mask and reveals the truth beneath, and in that raw clarity, transformation begins. This is why it is said, no demon dares to touch it. Darkness cannot exist in the presence of spiritual fire. In a world obsessed with safety, comfort, and control, Moldavite speaks a different language, one of surrender, truth, and frequency. It doesn't want you to be calm. It wants you to be clear. It wants you to stop asking for validation from a world asleep and start listening to the burning pulse of your own soul. When a person holds Moldavite and suddenly feels everything shifting, it is not the stone causing chaos, it is the soul finally removing interference. Like tuning a radio to a higher spiritual frequency, Moldavite reminds you of what you already are beneath the noise. And the moment you align with that truth, your life accelerates not in the direction your mind planned, but in the direction your soul always intended. The journey isn't easy, but it is real. Because Moldavite doesn't guide you to comfort, it delivers you to your destiny. 10. Lapis lazuli, the eye of the divine. Lapis lazuli, the deep celestial blue stone mined from the ancient mountains of Afghanistan, is not just a gem, it's a spiritual weapon. Feared not for its physical form, but for the truth it brings to light. Its rich indigo hue, often described as the color of the midnight sky, has long been associated with divine wisdom and higher perception. Worn by pharaohs, prophets, and mystics throughout history, lapis was never merely ornamental. It was chosen for its power to open the inner eye, the gateway to the soul's unfiltered vision. It doesn't battle darkness like fire battles night. Instead, it reveals it. Lapis doesn't destroy the lie. It removes the veil so you can see it for what it is. And that's precisely why demons fear it, not because it harms them, but because it renders them powerless by exposing the truth they hide behind. In the language of the soul, lapis is a call to remember, to strip away falsehoods, to awaken the silent knowing that lives beneath distraction and ego. Its presence is not loud or violent. It is still, yet unrelenting. It pierces illusion like a blade of insight, dissolving the masks men wear when they've forgotten who they truly are. Carl Jung's observation that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart is the essence of lapis. This is the stone that teaches men how to see not with the eyes, but with the soul. It sees through manipulation, denial, self-deception, and the socially constructed identities that keep you small. When worn or held close, it doesn't comfort, it confronts. And in doing so, it becomes the most powerful spiritual ally a man can possess. This stone was laid into the eye sockets of statues, placed on the foreheads of royalty, and carved into seals, not because it was rare, but because it was sacred. It opened perception, invited divine counsel, and awakened the soul's ancient memory. Lapis is the eye of the divine. When you engage with it, you're not adding something new. You're recovering what was lost. You're tuning back into the frequency of your original essence. It reminds you that you don't need to become more. You need to remember more. It teaches that strength isn't about dominance, but clarity. That power doesn't come from control, but from vision. And the clearer your vision becomes, the less you fear the shadow, because you understand the shadow is only powerful when unseen. Once revealed, it dissolves into its proper place. That is the silent brilliance of lapis lazuli. It doesn't scream, it sees. It doesn't fight, it exposes. And in a world where most men are taught to hide, lapis calls them to stand, to remember, and to see again with the eyes of the soul. If this message has opened your eyes to a deeper truth, leave a comment of clarity. I see through the illusion. I trust in divine vision and truth. And so, while the true nature of these ancient stones may remain cloaked in mystery, their symbolism and the energy they carry continue to resonate with those on a deeper spiritual path. Carl Jung reminded us that what is ancient is not outdated. It is archetypal, timeless, and powerful beyond measure. If something in today's message stirred your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next insight that might just change your life. Until next time, stay grounded, stay awakened, and walk in truth. Carl Jung reveals the real reason you struggle with self-sabotage. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung's timeless words strike at the heart of self-sabotage. Have you ever found yourself repeating the same mistakes, even when you know better? You're not alone, and the reason may lie deep within your unconscious mind. In this video, we'll uncover the real cause of self-sabotage through the lens of Jungian psychology and spiritual wisdom. What patterns are secretly shaping your life, and how can you break free from them to unlock your highest potential? Comment below with your thoughts or experiences on self-sabotage, and let's grow together. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom. 1. What is self-sabotage and why we do it? Self-sabotage is not a flaw in your character, nor is it simple procrastination or laziness. It's a pattern deeply rooted in the unconscious mind, one that Carl Jung believed arises from a misguided attempt at self-protection. When you begin to step outside your comfort zone, take risks, or approach real transformation, your psyche often pulls you back. Not because it wants you to fail, but because it has learned through past pain or conditioning that safety means staying small, predictable, and unseen. These behaviors show up in subtle yet powerful ways. You delay sending that important email. You pick a fight with someone you care about. You binge eat or overspend right after making progress toward your goals. And just when life begins to open up for you, that inner voice whispers, "You're not ready. You don't deserve this. Something will go wrong." It's not logic. It's fear disguised as logic. It's not your truth. It's the echo of wounds that haven't been healed. Carl Jung taught that unless we bring these unconscious patterns into conscious awareness, they will rule our lives. We will act out scripts we didn't write and wonder why we feel stuck. The shadow, the part of the psyche that contains all we reject or repress, becomes the puppeteer, and we play the role of saboteur without even realizing it. But the moment you shine light on these hidden parts, they lose their power to control you. Consider someone on the verge of real change. They've been offered a dream job, a beautiful relationship, or a creative breakthrough. Instead of stepping forward, they freeze. They doubt. They retreat. On the surface, it looks like hesitation. But deep down, it's the unconscious saying, "This is unknown." And unknown means unsafe. Even success can trigger sabotage if deep inside, you associate visibility or growth with pain. The unconscious mind isn't evil. It's ancient. It holds every memory, every emotional imprint, every protective mechanism you've ever needed to survive. But what once protected you may now be holding you back. The key is not to fight against it, but to understand it. When you stop judging your behavior and start asking, "What part of me is trying to be heard right now?" you begin to reclaim control. Self-sabotage fades when self-awareness rises. When you notice the pattern, question the fear, and offer yourself compassion, something powerful shifts. You no longer act out old wounds you start creating from truth. The journey requires courage, because facing your shadow means confronting pain. But it also brings clarity, strength, and the freedom to live as your whole self. Carl Jung believed true transformation is not about becoming someone else. It's about integrating all that you are. And when you embrace the part of you that's been scared to grow, you no longer need to sabotage your own joy. You become the conscious creator of your path, no longer held hostage by an invisible past. Have you ever caught yourself holding back right before something amazing could happen? If so, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize their own patterns. If not, comment, "I'm ready to break free," to commit to overcoming self-sabotage together. Let's support each other on this path to healing and growth. 2. Carl Jung's insight, the shadow. Carl Jung believed that the real reason we struggle with self-sabotage lies in the part of us called the shadow, a hidden aspect of our psyche made up of all the emotions, impulses, and traits we were told to reject as children. Maybe you were told not to cry, not to be angry, or not to be too loud or bold. Slowly, to fit in, to be accepted, you began suppressing those parts of yourself. But those parts didn't disappear. They simply sank into the unconscious, quietly shaping your behavior from the shadows. This shadow is not just a collection of negative traits. It's where your disowned brilliance lives. The passions you silenced, the confidence you buried, the creativity you tucked away because someone once said it was too much. Jung called this the gold in the dark, meaning the very parts of you you've rejected may be the most powerful. What you've locked away for years in shame or fear is also where your vitality and greatness are hiding. But if the shadow is ignored, it doesn't stay quiet. It starts showing up in self-sabotage. You delay a big project until the last moment. You push away people who love you. You reject good opportunities because you're secretly afraid of success. These aren't signs that you're broken. They are messages from your unconscious, your shadow saying, "See me." The more you suppress it, the more it controls you from behind the curtain. That's why Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about a moment when you felt you ruined something good. A relationship, a job, a chance to speak up. Most likely, it wasn't your conscious self that wanted to destroy it. It was a hidden belief that said, "You don't deserve this," or "You'll be abandoned if you succeed." These beliefs were born in your earliest years and became part of your inner script. The shadow doesn't destroy because it's evil. It disrupts because it's been exiled for too long. It's trying to come home. Healing doesn't mean deleting your shadow. It means sitting with it, listening, and welcoming it back into the light. The parts of you you've spent years avoiding, your anger, your fear, your shame, become less frightening when you look at them directly. And in doing so, they transform. Your anger becomes your boundary. Your fear becomes your discernment. Your shame becomes your compassion. That is spiritual wisdom in action, not running from the dark, but learning how to dance with it. Jung taught that real transformation comes not by pretending to be perfect, but by becoming whole. That means embracing both your light and your dark, your known self and your forgotten self. When you integrate the shadow, you stop fighting against yourself. You begin to move with clarity, power, and purpose, no longer ruled by hidden fears, but guided by deep self-awareness. The shadow loses its grip, not when you destroy it, but when you listen to it. And in listening, you reclaim your truth. Are you ready to face your shadow and reclaim your hidden power? If so, comment below. I embrace my shadow, to show your commitment to healing and self-discovery. 3. Early childhood conditioning and complexes. From early childhood, we are taught, often indirectly, which parts of ourselves are welcome and which are not. You may have been praised for being obedient, quiet, or helpful, and in turn, you learn to suppress anything that didn't earn approval. Anger, fear, sadness, even curiosity. Over time, these rejected parts don't disappear. They become buried in the unconscious, forming emotional clusters known as complexes. Carl Jung described complexes as the hidden patterns that run your life when you're not aware of them. They show up as the inner critic that whispers you're never good enough, or the fear of abandonment that keeps you clinging to the wrong people. They are not logical, and they don't care about your adult reasoning. They are emotional echoes from childhood, seeking resolution. This is why so many of us find ourselves stuck in painful cycles, repeating the same types of relationships, the same sabotaging behaviors, or the same failures just as we're on the edge of success. Jung called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate early wounds in hopes of finally healing them. If, for instance, your emotional needs were ignored as a child, you might keep finding yourself in situations where you feel invisible, not because you want to suffer, but because your psyche is still trying to solve an old problem. It's an emotional loop, disguised as fate, but truly born of unmet needs that have never been consciously addressed. These patterns are often mistaken for personality traits. You might say, "I just have trust issues," or "I'm afraid of commitment." But beneath those surface beliefs lies something far more significant. Your forgotten self, exiled long ago, still calling out to be acknowledged. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Spiritual awakening begins the moment you stop identifying with the story you've been repeating and begin to ask, what part of me is trying to speak through this pain? What makes this process transformative is not just self-awareness, but self-compassion. You cannot fight your way out of these patterns by force. You must meet them with understanding, like a parent soothing a frightened child. The fear, the jealousy, the shame, they are not enemies. They are messengers. And when you listen, truly listen, the patterns begin to soften. The grip loosens. You remember that you are more than your conditioning. You are not broken. You are incomplete, waiting to be made whole through the very wounds you've been taught to hide. Spiritual awakening, then, is not a moment of escape. It is a return to what has always been yours. Your right to feel fully, to live authentically, to act not from survival, but from sovereignty. The healing does not lie in avoiding the shadow, but in integrating it. And in doing so, self-sabotage becomes self-understanding, and pain becomes the path to freedom. If this message spoke to you, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that helps you heal, grow, and thrive. Type in the comments, "I am healing my inner child," to affirm your journey toward emotional freedom and self-love. 4. The paradox of sabotage. It's a protective mechanism. Self-sabotage is not simply a personal flaw or weakness. It's often your psyche's quiet way of protecting you from something deeper. According to Carl Jung, many of the behaviors you label as self-defeating are actually subconscious attempts to maintain inner balance. This process is rooted in what Jung called enantiodromia, the tendency of the psyche to swing in the opposite direction when one extreme is overemphasized. When you overwork, overachieve, or suppress certain emotions, your unconscious reacts by pulling you back, not to harm you, but to protect your sense of wholeness. This reaction can take many forms: burnout, procrastination, emotional outbursts, or even physical illness. It's not sabotage in the way we usually understand it. It's more like your soul sounding the alarm. You may think you're breaking down, when in truth, you're being asked to slow down. You may interpret failure as weakness, when it might actually be an act of inner survival. Your unconscious is trying to bring balance where your conscious mind is chasing extremes. Take the example of a high-achieving entrepreneur who pushes themselves endlessly, feeding their identity on productivity. Their schedule is packed, their phone never silent, and their to-do list never ends. Eventually, they begin missing meetings, losing focus, or making avoidable mistakes. They beat themselves up for not being stronger. But what if those mistakes are actually messages? What if their psyche is creating friction to slow them down, to make them reconsider their priorities, or to restore a neglected emotional life? This is where Carl Jung's insights become essential. He didn't see the unconscious as a dumping ground for unwanted impulses. He saw it as a source of profound wisdom. When the ego is inflated or disconnected from the soul, the unconscious activates compensatory forces. That's why Jung said, the unconscious wants to flow into consciousness and be integrated. The very behaviors you consider destructive may be signs of that deeper movement. A modern example can be seen in someone who, after years of climbing the corporate ladder, starts feeling inexplicably lost or irritable. They begin turning down promotions, withdrawing from colleagues, or doubting their own abilities. From the outside, it may look like they're sabotaging their success, but inside, their true self is pushing against a life that no longer fits. They're not breaking, they're awakening. Their soul is rejecting a life that lacks authenticity. Self-sabotage, in this case, becomes a gateway to spiritual awakening. You must begin to ask, what part of me is tired of pretending? What truth have I buried under ambition or fear? What emotional wound have I ignored for too long? Self-sabotage often emerges when your inner and outer lives are no longer aligned. It's the signal flare of a soul in conflict. By observing it with compassion instead of shame, you allow deeper truths to surface. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that the psyche always seeks integration. When you suppress your needs, neglect your emotions, or chase goals that don't align with your inner truth, your unconscious resists not to punish you, but to pull you back into wholeness. That resistance may look like sabotage, but in reality, it's a sacred form of self-correction. By turning toward it and listening closely, you may uncover the very wisdom you've been searching for. If you're ready to embrace the deeper wisdom behind your patterns, comment below. I honor the balance within. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more powerful insights like this. 5. Shadow work and individuation. Jung believed that the key to becoming a whole and authentic self lies not in perfection, but in integration. The parts of us we try to hide our anger, our shame, our fears don't disappear. They form what he called the shadow, a hidden realm of the unconscious where all our repressed emotions and denied traits live. Most people spend their lives trying to outrun their shadow, wearing masks to appear strong, good, or acceptable. But in doing so, they create internal division. The more we deny the shadow, the more power it gains. It shows up in self-sabotage, broken relationships, repeated patterns, and quiet suffering. True transformation begins when we stop suppressing these darker parts of ourselves and instead begin to meet them with compassion. To grow spiritually and emotionally, we must face what we've rejected within us, not with judgment, but with honesty and gentleness. That's where real strength lies, in turning toward our pain rather than away from it. This is the heart of spiritual wisdom, knowing that what you resist persists, but what you embrace, you can transform. When you listen to the voice beneath your anger or sadness, you'll often find an old wound still bleeding, still waiting to be seen. Healing is not about removing the pain, but allowing it to be heard, to breathe, to guide you back to your true self. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. Every trigger, every overreaction, every insecurity is a doorway into deeper self-understanding. And yet, resistance to this work is natural. It's easier to blame external circumstances than to admit that some part of you is afraid of who you might become. As Jung once pointed out, many people fear their own potential more than they fear failure. Why? because stepping into your highest self means letting go of everything you've built your identity around. The need to be liked, the fear of judgment, the belief that you're not enough. It means breaking free from the familiar discomfort of old stories and rewriting your narrative from a place of conscious choice. Individuation is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to yourself. But that return requires courage. It means asking difficult questions and sitting with uncomfortable answers. It asks you to welcome not only your light, but your darkness. To understand that you are both. To realize that spiritual wisdom doesn't ask you to become perfect, it asks you to become real. And to be real, you must be whole. Whole means you have accepted your flaws, your rage, your tenderness, your power, all as sacred aspects of your human experience. This inner work is not a quick fix. It's a lifelong dialogue with your soul. But each time you choose awareness over avoidance, truth over illusion, wholeness over image, you take one step closer to freedom. Not the freedom that comes from escaping who you are, but the freedom that comes from embracing who you've always been. The shadow doesn't disappear. It becomes integrated. And when it does, it no longer controls you from the dark. It empowers you from within. Comment below. I choose to face my shadow if you're ready to embrace your whole self with courage and compassion. Let this be your first step toward true inner transformation and individuation. 6. Tools for shadow integration. Recurring dreams are not just random flickers of the mind. They are messengers from the unconscious, trying to break through the noise of everyday life. When certain themes appear again and again in your sleep, like being chased, losing control, or returning to the same place, it often signals a conflict buried deep within. These dreams are the voice of the shadow, calling for your attention. Keeping a journal beside your bed and writing down the emotions, symbols, and patterns that emerge can help you trace the roots of unresolved feelings or inner divides. Each dream is a riddle, one that reveals the parts of yourself you've long avoided. But some truths can't be unraveled with logic alone. That's where active imagination becomes essential. This is a process of inner dialogue, a conscious encounter with the unconscious. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and visualize the part of you that feels angry, afraid, or ashamed. Ask it what it wants. Ask it what it's afraid of. Let it speak. This isn't about inventing answers. It's about surrendering to the unknown inside you. The shadow is often desperate to be heard, and when you give it a voice, it starts to lose its power to sabotage you from behind the scenes. Expression, not suppression, is the path forward. That's why creative expression is such a powerful tool in shadow integration. When you write freely, paint spontaneously, or let your body move without control, something ancient wakes up inside you. You may find tears you didn't know were waiting, or stories from childhood rising like waves. This process is not about perfection. It's about honesty. Art bypasses the ego and speaks for the soul. And in that space, the shadow doesn't feel judged. It feels accepted. Carl Jung once said, "Art is a kind of innate drive that seizes a human being and makes him its instrument." When you create without filtering, you become a vessel for healing. To integrate the shadow fully, you must also develop a fierce commitment to self-reflection. Notice your emotional triggers. What makes you irrationally angry or uncomfortable? Who makes you feel envious, small, or deeply annoyed? These reactions are mirrors. Often, what we most reject in others is what we refuse to face within ourselves. The qualities you judge, neediness, arrogance, selfishness, are usually unacknowledged parts of your own psyche seeking reintegration. Every judgment is a doorway. Every irritation is an invitation. When you trace these emotional responses back to their source, you discover the blueprint of your shadow. This inner work is not easy, but it is the birthplace of spiritual awakening. When you begin to recognize the silent forces that have shaped your life, your patterns, your wounds, your fears, you stop reacting unconsciously. You reclaim your power. You stop being ruled by inner saboteurs and start living from a place of clarity and wholeness. Integration isn't about erasing your darkness. It's about making peace with it. Because only when the light meets the shadow can you truly awaken. If this message has resonated with your journey of self-discovery, comment below. I welcome my shadow with compassion and courage. Your healing begins the moment you stop running from yourself. Let's walk this path of inner integration together. 7. Psychological maturity is integration, not perfection. Psychological maturity isn't about striving for perfection. It's about embracing integration. To grow, you don't need to erase your flaws or pretend they don't exist. Real growth comes from being able to hold both your strength and your vulnerability, your confidence and your uncertainty, your light and your shadow. Carl Jung taught that the path to becoming a whole person, what he called individuation, requires you to face and integrate the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide or suppress. These aren't weaknesses to overcome, but keys to your inner truth. In a world obsessed with performance, self-optimization, and external success, it's easy to fall into the trap of appearing perfect while internally falling apart. Maya, a successful young woman, is a modern example. She had everything: a well-paying job, polished appearance, and a thriving online presence. But behind the scenes, she sabotaged her relationships, avoided intimacy, and felt chronically empty. It wasn't until she explored the parts of herself she had buried old wounds, unprocessed anger, and deep fears that she realized the cause of her pain. Like many of us, she wasn't broken. She was just divided. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The unconscious isn't just some distant realm. It's alive in your reactions, your triggers, your patterns, and especially your self-sabotage. The shadow, those unwanted emotions and traits you try to push away, gains more power the more you avoid it. But when you stop running and finally turn toward it, something powerful happens. It loses its grip. You begin to reclaim your energy and your clarity. Every hero must walk into the darkness before they rise. The shadow is not an obstacle to your path. It is the path. And just like in every myth or movie, the true transformation comes not from conquering the monster, but from recognizing that the monster was a part of you all along. Growth, then, is not about constant positivity or spiritual bypassing. It's about truth. It's about facing the discomfort and staying with it long enough for it to teach you something real. Integration is not a finish line. It's a practice. It means catching yourself when you're projecting your wounds onto others. It means staying curious about your own reactions instead of immediately judging them. It means forgiving yourself for not being perfect and choosing to show up with honesty instead. As you do this, the different parts of you, your fear, your ambition, your tenderness, your rage, begin to move from conflict into conversation. That's where true power begins. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom shows us that we don't need to become someone else. We need to return to ourselves fully and unapologetically. The pieces we once called broken are actually sacred. And the maturity we long for isn't about being flawless. It's about being whole. To affirm your commitment to true growth, not perfection, declare it today. Comment below. I choose integration, to honor your path toward authenticity and inspire others to embrace their whole selves, shadow and all. Remember, self-sabotage isn't just a flaw in your willpower. It's often a deeper signal from the unconscious, asking you to heal, grow, and realign with your true self. As Carl Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If today's message spoke to something hidden within you, don't let it fade away. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new step on your journey toward transformation.